Hello, Kids Creek friends. My name is Miss Danielle, and I am a storyteller at our Sycamore Creek Potterville campus. I wanted to dive into another story with you this week, and this week we're going to talk about Charles Wesley. But first, let me go ahead and go over our memory verse, which is from Luke 24, verse 5 and 6. The men asked, "Why are you looking for a living person here? This is a place for the dead. Jesus is not here. He is risen." Again, that's Luke 24, verse 5 and 6. Now, this school year, we've been talking a lot about how the church spread from a city in the Middle East long, long ago to our churches today. Now, thinking back, what did Jesus tell his followers to do right before Jesus went up to heaven? Do you remember? He told them to tell the world about him. Who did that? Do you remember who did that well? Well, one of the people who did a really great job telling the people about Jesus is Charles Wesley. So, before we kick off this story, let's talk a little bit about it. Have you ever gotten a song stuck in your head? No matter what you do, the same tune just keeps rolling and rolling in your brain, especially if it's a song like Baby Shark. Everybody gets that stuck in their head. Music is one way that important information and stories get stuck in our memories. That's one reason we worship God with songs, to tell stories, to remember true things about God, and to get them stuck in our brains. This was Charles Wesley's jam. He was the younger brother to John Wesley. Remember the story about the house fire? Charles was the baby in that story. Charles had a special place in Methodist history, and let's get to know him a little bit. So this story takes place in England in the 1700s. John and his younger brother Charles thought Georgia was wild, really wild. First, their boat from England was tossed and tumbled over ocean waves for months and months. There were sometimes storms, and most people were on board were seasick. That is not a fun thing, to be seasick or car sick. No. Few things went smoothly once they arrived to the American colony either. Take Charles's trip, for example. He was sick in the Georgia summer heat. Bugs bugged him. He had no pillow, no blanket, no bed. The man in charge of the colony treated him roughly. He was shot at. He took baths in a swampy river early in the morning, careful not to wake the snoring alligators nearby. That does not sound like a fun place to be. Worse for the two brothers, they came to America with the dream of talking to Indian tribes about Jesus. They didn't get that chance. They felt like they had failed God. Do you think they failed God? No. Things changed for them when they went home to England. Charles said the Spirit of God filled him with a new love for God. The Holy Spirit filled him with power. Does that remind you of another story in the Bible? Being filled with power? He wanted to talk about Jesus wherever he could. So he did, just like his brother John. Just like John, Charles went around the country on horseback to preach to big crowds. Just like when John preached, tons of people showed up. They were poor and they were sometimes dirty. Most couldn't even read. These weren't people who usually went to the formal Church of England. But like John, Charles wanted to bring stories about Jesus wherever the people were. How do you see our church doing that today? Do you see us bringing stories about Jesus to the people? We do a good job at that, huh? And Charles wondered, how could he keep the truth about God in people's brains after he left them? If the people couldn't read, how could he make sure that they knew the great, big, true ideas about Jesus? Do you remember how you learned the ABCs? Through song. Yes. So he wrote so many songs, sometimes called hymns, that historians aren't sure how many he even wrote. 5,000, 7,000, maybe 9,000 hymns. We still sing some of them today. These songs were sung, put in books, and shared all over, and helped Methodists grow steady like a drum beat. Now, looking back on hymns and how songs have impacted our lives and our memories, try thinking of some, ways that you can retell this story to kind of remember it. Now, I have a few suggestions for you. You can try singing along with a song or two. I'll give you some song suggestions in a moment. What words do you hear in some of those songs? Are you feeling creative today? If you are, you can write your own song about Jesus, or give one of Charles's old songs a new beat. Compose something for us, okay? Now, here's some questions to think about from today's story. What can learning songs about Jesus or God teach us about them? And think of a song you may have sung in worship lately. Now, we've sung You're a Good, Good Father, Amazing Grace, Bless the Lord, Oh my soul. Can you think of anything else? What do those songs tell you about God? Now, some of Charles Wesley's most famous songs to look back on are Hark the Herald Angels Sing, Christ the Lord is Risen Today, and Oh, for a Thousand Tongues to Sing. I'll link those in the comments below. If you take a moment to do any of those retell suggestions or answer any questions, feel free to send them my way. I hope you all have a wonderful week.